Warning: this video contains graphic images. Please be advised.
And now for the next 30 minutes, as the world turns.
And I thought about it, and I gave it a great deal of thought, Grandpa.
Here is a bulletin from CBS News. In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's Motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
This is the view from the old Texas School Book Depository today. Houston Street is directly below and crosses Elm Street in front of the building. Out of the window, you can clearly see the live oak tree that was planted generations ago. Further down the street, an X is visible in the pavement. This X represents the alleged second shot fired from the building, the infamous magic bullet. But let's put all this in context and go back 56 years. President John F. Kennedy arrived in Dallas, Texas on the morning of November 22, 1963. After a busy morning in Fort Worth, President Kennedy and the First Lady, Jackie Kennedy, arrive at Love Field Airport to a large, enthusiastic crowd. President Kennedy was in his first term of office and campaigning for re-election.
Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate.
This visit to Texas came after the Bay of Pigs and Cuban Missile Crisis, respectively. Dallas was known during this period as the City of Hate because of a powerful concentration of right-wing extremists who vilified Democrats, and Kennedy in particular, as being too soft on communism. Despite this reputation, and some of the protests of the past, the presidential motorcade, which included Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson and Texas Governor John Connally, was greeted by over 150,000 people crowded onto Main Street to greet the President and First Lady. The Kennedys traveled in an open-air limousine. The bulletproof top was reputed to be removed so the crowd could have an intimate view of the Kennedys. Jackie Kennedy was the draw for many in the crowd. The First Lady was a fashion icon, and fans wanted to take photos of her as she passed by. The President and his motorcade were on their way to the Trade Mart, close to downtown, to attend a luncheon. The original plan was to journey down Main Street and directly take I-35. However, the planners realized some 3 days before Kennedy was to arrive that their route was flawed. There is no access to the highway from Main Street, and the whole motorcade would need to be rerouted a block over to Elm Street. This could easily be remedied by a right turn on Houston Street, right by Dealey Plaza. What this does, however, is takes the motorcade directly in front of the Texas School Book Depository, the building where Lee Harvey Oswald worked. Just before turning on Houston Street, Governor Connally's wife Nellie stated, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you," as the crowds cheered. Little did they know what would happen in the next few moments. Among the vintage film footage seen here is the film shot by Abraham Zapruder.
My name is Abraham Zapruder.
Mr. Zapruder?
Zapruder, yes, sir.
Zapruder. And would you tell us your story, please, sir?
I got out and about a half hour earlier and get to a good spot to shoot some pictures. And I found a spot, one of these concrete blocks that I have down near that park near the underpass. And I got on top there. There was another girl from my office. She was right behind me. And as I was shooting, as the president was coming down from Houston Street making his turn, it was about halfway down there, I heard a shot. and he slumped to the side like this. Then I had another shot or two. I couldn't say what it was, one or two. And I saw his head practically open up, all blood and everything. And I kept on shooting. That's about all. I'm just sick. I can't.
I think that pretty well expresses the entire feelings of the whole world.
Jackie is heard screaming, and she climbs on the back of the limo to retrieve brain matter. Secret Service agent Clint Hill ran from the car immediately behind her and leaped onto the back of the presidential limo to shield the First Lady and President with his body as the car raced to Parkland Memorial Hospital.
The President's car was some 50 feet still yet.
In front of you?
In front of us coming towards us, and we heard the first shot, and the President, I don't know who was hit first, but the President jumped up in his seat, and I thought it scared him. I thought it was a firecracker because he looked, fear. And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the President in the side of the temple.
Do you think the first gunshot came from behind you, too?
I think it came from the same location. Apparently back up on the mall. I don't know what you call it.
For the benefit of nomenclature, all you folks have gone out under the viaduct, and as you turn, going under the viaduct on the left-hand side, there's some grass. Do you think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the President? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground there, the garden.
How far away would you say that is from where the President was? A couple of 300 yards, something like that?
Well, I have no idea because I didn't see where the gunshot come from. We were looking directly at the President when he was hit. Mm-hmm. And he was more or less directly in front of us, and we didn't realize what happened until we seen the side of his head whenever the bullet hit him in the head.
The scale model tells a different story. The official government stance, the Warren Commission, states 3 shots were fired from the Texas School Book Depository. The first shot missed. The second shot hits both Kennedy and Governor Connally, and the third shot hits Kennedy in the head. The sequence of these shots and their origin are still up for debate. At Parkland Hospital, President Kennedy and Governor Connally were rushed into surgery. Kennedy was given a tracheotomy and oxygen to help him breathe. The surgeons who performed the tracheotomy noted the throat was an entrance wound from the bullet, and the neck was an exit wound. Dan Rather reported these findings.
We are told that the gunshot wound, the fatal wound inflicted on the President of the United States, entered at the base of the throat and came out at the base of the neck on the back side.
It should be noted, however, the Warren Commission stated the entrance wound was in the back of the neck and exited through the President's throat, indicating that shots came from behind the President rather than in front of him. For about an hour, the media were getting conflicting information about the status of President Kennedy. Father Oscar L. Huber was called in to administer last rites, but even then, the official word was not given until 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
After the official announcement had been made, President Kennedy's body was taken back to Washington, D.C., against Texas law for the autopsy. Vice President Johnson was to take the oath of office on the return flight to Washington. Jackie Kennedy, still wearing her blood-covered pink dress, was offered a change of clothes. However, Jackie refused. Understanding the power of imagery, she stated, "I want them to see what they have done." But the question still lingered. Who could have done such a thing? Who shot the president? And why?
What are your first reactions to a tragedy of this sort?
My first reaction, sir, is that I hope these Southerners, these radicals, are satisfied to get their pound of flesh, and killing a man as good as that.
Are you certain that it is right-wing radicals or people who oppose the president so desperately that they would do something like this, who committed this act?
Yes, sir. It could be no one else. Someone who do this must be mentally deranged. No clear-thinking human person would ever think of doing something like that.
Next time.
As we mentioned a short while ago, a number of arrests have been made in Dallas in the wake of President Kennedy's death. This was just after a Dallas policeman was shot in the vicinity of a downtown movie house.
This is the Macabre Tourist.